Hi, so I wanted to show you here the unusual and very antiquated system of condenser and points that exist inside of these older lawnmowers. This here, of course, is the classic Lawn Boy, and we're getting no spark. However, when I tested it with my sparker, I was getting spark in here, but nothing coming out of the plug. The first obvious thing to do, of course, is to remove the shroud, and then we have access to the flywheel over here. There's one bolt at the top that we remove, and the flywheel will come out, and I'll show you all the goodies that exist under there. Okay, so I've already had this one off, so it's a bit loose, but sometimes they'll need a little bit of gentle encouragement and something to pop them from underneath. You'll see it comes off thusly. And then here is the governor and the starter switch over here. And to access this one, there's going to be 3 flathead screws over here, and then we're going to very gently lift this entire assembly off to gain access to the condenser and the points, which reside just under here. Now, I will warn, this is the time to take pictures and note how this is set, because this is one of those oh Jesus components, in that when you knock it, the whole thing's going to explode and you'll have a difficult time to put it back together. So we've removed the 3 screws, and now we're just going to very carefully lift this entire assembly out. First we have to disconnect the spring over here. So we'll pop that out, and then we can lift this whole cover, and I'm going to take it out as one piece and just set it aside. Like I said, sometimes this switch will fall off. I'm going to push the throttle pin down and just lift the entire thing off and set it aside. But here is what it looks like. If this comes off on you, it's just set together like that. These 2 pieces hook under one another, and then there's a spacer beneath. Alrighty, so here's the condenser, here's the points, and this video is going to be the solution to, I would say, about the majority of half of the problems which reside in between here in the points. And the way to do that is spin the shaft up until the point where they open, like this, and then take a little piece of sandpaper. The finer the grit the better, and you need to sand them down because they're making bad contact. And then you can wipe them down with like a little Q-tip with some isopropanol alcohol or something like that, and that will solve your problems. If not, then it is most likely the capacitor here, which is referred to as the condenser. Now, do note that there is a space gap. I believe it's usually about 20 thousandths of an inch or so, similar as you would have your 30 or 35 thousand spark gap for your spark plug. And then there's obviously another gap here where the coil contacts the magnets of the flywheel. So, as I say, sand those down, clean them off, the little sanded bits, and then put everything back together and try it then. If not, then it's likely the coil, or the, not the coil, what do you call it, the condenser, which is effectively a capacitor. The other thing it could be is the contacts in your switch here. So you can try wiggling this, sanding down that contact, or sometimes you will have to open the switch and file down those contacts, which is a whole other video in itself. But as I say, the large and the vast majority of problems reside in these contacts here between your 2 points. Now, once you've filed them down, if you have to file them down too much, you'll have to reset the gap. And the way to do that is to loosen this flathead screw, and when the points are open, turn the shaft until the points are open, slide in your feeler gauge, and reset the gap, and then tighten down the screw. So that's pretty much it. I will go ahead and put this back together and see if we get spark. Okay, so I have the cover piece back on, and then I'm going to put back the 3 screws. We've reattached the spring. We've made sure that this is seated on there correctly. And the trick to getting this back together is, before putting the flywheel back on, we have to push down the pin, and you can just pull it from where the carburetor is here, and just pull it down so that it sits on top like that. Otherwise the pin See, it's not contacting the governor switch, so push that down like that, make sure it's seated down, and then when we push down the flywheel, it's going to be in position. Okay, now we're going to want to regap the magneto or the ignition coil. So what I like to do is just put a thin piece of card in between there and make sure that it's not touching the flywheel, and then you can go ahead and secure down the bolt. Okay, everything is back together now. So now to test to make sure we have spark, we'll put the switch in the on position. We will hold the spark plug to the metal body of the motor. Let's pull the cord. And I don't know if this is turning out on the video, but we have a nice blue spark there. Alright, there we go. If we had an orange spark, that would be a bit weak, and we would want to regap this plug. But I'm going to put all this shit back together and see if we can actually get the machine started. Alright, let's start her up. I took out the filter, obviously. This all needs to be cleaned. Put the switch to the on position. Give her a prime. And this little thing here, I need to make a new clip for it. I'm just going to hold it to the normal setting and see if it starts. Runs like a spring chicken. And you can see how late in the cycle when I turn it back on, it kicks back on no problem. So there you go, super simple. Clean the points, and 8.5 out of 10 times that'll fix your problem.